Hey guys, Jim Schultz with you guys for the Daily Shred, and I've said this before, I will say it again. The number one obstacle, let's just kind of shoot from strength today. The number one obstacle between where you are now and where you're trying to go in the world of fitness is absolutely injury. It doesn't matter if you're trying to get stronger, it doesn't matter if you're trying to get leaner, it doesn't matter if you're just trying to be a little bit healthier. The thing that is going to trip you up like no other thing can do is getting injured, where you are put on the shelf for 6 weeks or 12 weeks or 3 months or 6 months or whatever, and you are put in a situation where you maybe can't train at all, or you can't train with the intensity that you would like to train with. This is by far and away the biggest obstacle that each and every one of us faces. And guys, to be honest with you, man, I mean, now that I've entered a brand new decade of my life, or I'm in a whole new decade of life that God has so graciously blessed me with the ability to experience, this whole injury thing, this whole getting hurt thing, like, it has a brand new meaning, right? Like, it just kind of hits different these days, man. I mean, now that I'm, trying to work through these aches and these pains and these joints and these things and these that things, like, getting injured has a whole new feeling to me. Like, before, when I was in my 20s, when I was in my 30s, like, I always knew this was true. And I've worked through some serious injuries. Like, I've worked through, a kind of a big deal with my neck. It's probably the biggest injury that I have sustained in my career. And then my hamstring was probably the next one. But now that I'm working through this whole torn meniscus situation, which still, by the way, is TBD for those of you that might be kind of wondering. I should learn a little bit more this Friday, but nevertheless, it just hits different, man. It just hits different. Now I think I understand this in a way that I've not been able to understand it in before. It just feels a lot more real to me, and I'm kind of like, yeah, really is the thing that is going to hold you back. It's going to hold me back. It's going to hold anyone back from reaching their goals. It doesn't matter if you're in your 20s or your 30s or your 40s or your 50s or your 60s or your teens or your 70s. It doesn't make a difference. It is injury. Because if you think about it, right, what is the number one thing that we all need to do to reach our goals? Again, it doesn't matter. Getting stronger, getting leaner, getting healthier makes no difference. What is the one thing that's going to get you there? It's not keto. It's not intermittent fasting. It's definitely not the carnivore diet. It's consistency, right? It's consistently applying whatever it is you're trying to apply. Well, if you're injured, you can't do that, right? If you're hurt, you have no chance at consistency. And so that, these two things kind of go hand in hand. So what I want to do after this super long pretext, I was kind of like, yeah, we'll knock through the intro in like 25, maybe 30 seconds. Like, yeah, no. Here are 3 things that you can do right away to significantly minimize your risk of injury. Okay, so the first way to minimize injury risk, and guys, this is so simple. Like, it's kind of silly how simple this is. But I haven't always done a great job of this throughout my training career. I continue to see this abused over and over and over again in today's training world. Warm up thoroughly. Like, I got it, man. It's a pain. Like, I got it, man. Like, you don't want to do it. Like, I understand that it just jams you up totally from a time investment, from a schedule investment, from an everything investment. But guys, it just works really, really well to prevent injuries. It just works really, really well to prevent you from getting hurt, which is going to mess up everything else in the sequence. When you are intentional, when you are thorough, when you are conscientious with your warm-ups, man, it just takes the risk of injury down substantially. Now, the idea behind the warm-up, all my athletes inside of Full Throttle, you guys already know this with the warm-up sequence that is inside of the course. A gentle little nudge in the direction of Full Throttle Fat Loss that, of course, you can find linked down below there at livefcubed.com. But the basic idea is this. It's a 1-2 punch, right? That's all it is. You want to do this and you want to do that. It's very, very simple. The first part to this is just the following. You want to warm up your body, right? You want to get the full body warmed up. You want to get the whole system kind of ready to go. Now, how do you do this? Pretty traditional stuff. You hit the bike for a couple of minutes. You hit the treadmill for a couple of minutes. Kind of just walking, or, I don't really think you should do like a light jog or anything like that, but just get your body moving. I think walking or jogging are going to be great options here. But then the next step inside of the first step, we're still inside of step one, is you want to do some kind of dynamic warm-up sequence. Now, there's a number of different ways that you can do this, and so I'm not going to go into anything specific, right here today. But the idea is this: if you're doing an upper body day, you want to make sure that you warm up your shoulders, and you want to make sure that you warm up your elbows. You want to get that shoulder joint loose. You want to get that elbow joint loose. And you want to do these through some, dynamic movements. You could just Google, elbow mobility, Google shoulder mobility. You'll find a bunch of great resources, free resources that you can access today that are very, very good and very, very solid. If you don't know where to start, I would Google John Russin, Rusin. He has a bunch of great free resources that are available, and I've taken a lot of stuff from him over the years. I've picked up a lot of tips and pointers along the way, so he would be a really, really good resource to utilize when it comes to this. But upper body, shoulders, elbows, critical. Lower body, knees and hips, with an honorable mention paid to your ankles. Knees, hips, potentially ankles. Again, dynamic movements. Again, a dynamic sequence that's going to help you warm these joints up and get these guys ready. This is step one, so it's kind of a step 1A and step 1B. What about step 2? Do plenty of warm-up sets. Right? Don't rush through your warm-up sets, man. Don't rush through the initial sets in the movement, especially for your first movement of the day, especially if that movement is a compound movement like a squat or a bench press or a deadlift or something similar to those guys. You want to set the groove. You want to get your motor units ready to go. And one of the best ways to do that after your body is already, somewhat loose and somewhat warm is to do plenty of warm-up sets. Now, it's going to vary, depending on the movement. It's going to vary depending on what you personally like. But I generally find somewhere between 3 on the very low end to like 5 or 6 warm-up sets for your first movement of the day. That will get your body really, really ready to go. It'll get your joints lubricated. It'll get your motor units, kind of set into the groove. And then, for the other exercises that day, some people don't like to do any warm-up sets. Some people do like to do 1 or 2. I kind of fall into the 1 or 2 camp because I like to calibrate myself to the movement. But from a minimizing injury risk standpoint, which is the focal point today, the most important part is to do your warm-up sets for that first movement of the session. Okay, so the second way to minimize injury risk, and this is going to twist up some knickers out there. Like, this is probably going to rustle some jimmies out there in the audience. But hey, man, I am just here to relay the truth to you guys. Don't change your exercises too frequently. Don't go in there 1 week and doing dumbbell presses for chest, and then go in the next week, you're doing, machine flies for chest as your main movement. And then the following week, you're doing cable crossovers for your main movement, right? Hashtag Pump City. Don't do that. Don't do anything like that. You want to stay with the same program for a period of time. Like, give it at least a block, right? Like a 4, 5, 6 week stint of training, if not even longer than that. Not only will changing exercises too frequently stifle your progress. This is something I've talked about many, many times in the past. So for those of you that have been following me for a while in the fitness circles, hey, thank you very much. I appreciate the support more than you might realize. You already know how I feel, when it comes to this. You already know that I am not a fan of changing exercises too frequently. Not only is it going to be difficult for you to measure your progress and know if you are indeed, getting better, getting worse, remaining stagnant, or whatever, but as you get older especially, right? So, quick little, shout out to my, more experienced crowd out there, my seasoned crowd out there, which I am now part of, or at least considering myself part of. Your joints, your tendons, your ligaments, right? These guys need an opportunity to get ready for battle. These guys need an opportunity to get ready for the groove that you've set, for the calibration that you've, invested in, or what have you. They don't like to be jostled around too much, right? So if they're used to, squatting first on your leg day, you set that groove, you're just going to take down the risk of injury if you keep squatting first on leg day. Now, I'm not saying you should always squat first on leg day, and I'm not saying you even should squat first on leg day, although you probably should squat first on leg day. But you don't have to do this forever. I'm just saying that once you commit to whatever your split is, you need to maintain the spirit of that split moving forward. And if you do that, I think it's going to reduce your risk of injury significantly. All right, guys. So lastly, the third way to minimize your injury risk. Here's what you got to do. You got to be really intentional about your recovery time. So it could be, myofascial release. It could be mobility work on your off days. It could be mobility work at night. It could be myofascial release as part of your warm up. There's a number of different ways that you could actually, kind of weave this into practice. But the important point, the mindset that you need to have when it comes to your recovery is you need to be intentional about this. It's not just going to happen. You have to go out of your way to do these things. And you would be amazed, absolutely blown away if you've never done these things before, at what an intentional 10 minutes done 2 or 3 times per week can do for you and how you feel, your joint health, your overall achiness, etc., etc. You get into some myofascial release and some mobility work, on your shoulders, on your knees, on those elbows, on those ankles. You do these things on a regular basis, and man, you will start feeling really good really, really quickly. And so there's a number of ways that you could do this. You could use a tennis ball. You could use a lacrosse ball. You could use the stick, right? This thing is literally called the stick. I don't have it with me. I was thinking about bringing it in for today's show, but I forgot to grab it before I started to record. But just Google the stick, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. You could use that. You could use a hypervolt, right? You could use like a therapy or a Theragun or whatever. I have all 4. I have tennis balls, lacrosse balls, sticks. I have multiple sticks. I have, the hypervolt. Like, they're all amazing for different reasons. They're all, really good for different kind of angles of recovery. Some are quick and easy. Some are not as quick and maybe not as easy, but more effective. But they all work to kind of do their part in keeping you well and keeping those injuries at bay. And so, you could do one or the other, myofascial release or mobility work. You could do a little bit of each. Again, as part of like your nightly routine 2 or 3 times a week. That's kind of what I do. You could weave it into some of your warm-ups when it comes to getting ready for your actual training. That's also not a bad idea. But this will do wonders for minimizing your injury risk if you are intentional about it. If you are intentional about it and you do it, several times per week, or even if you have one area that's really giving you fits, like your neck, or your shoulder, or your brachialis, or whatever, right? I would do it for a couple of minutes every single day. If you do that, and you're consistent with that, and you're dedicated with that, then after maybe 3 or 4 weeks, you are very likely going to start feeling a whole lot better. That's exactly what happened to my own shoulder. That's exactly what happened to my own neck. That's exactly what happened to my own hamstring. And so I am like, a walking case study for myofascial release. I think it's an unbelievable thing. And the mobility work obviously is also very important. But for me personally, that's more of a newer thing. And so I don't have quite the experience and the resume that I do with myofascial release. But mobility work, also very, very promising. So I don't know, guys. I think that's it. I think the Daily Shred has reached its its conclusion here today. I hope you guys got a little something from today's show. If you guys wanted to like this video on your way out the door, that would really help. If you want to share it with a friend, that would also really help. And if you want to subscribe to the channel, if you're brand new, that would also really help. And I think that's it, guys. I will see you guys next time.